Hello and welcome to my new and improved YouTube channel, JEBYxD. The story of how JEBYxD came about is a story for another day. However, I am here today to talk about another story. As a young, moderate Halloween enjoyer myself, and I'm sure many of you are, I love Hocus Pocus. It's the one thing I do every year around Halloween time. I don't really celebrate. I don't really go to Halloween parties anymore, but the one thing I make sure to do is to always watch Hocus Pocus. For some reason in my monkey brain, I thought Hocus Pocus 2 existed from like years ago. Somebody brought it up to me recently and I was like, oh yeah, I heard it's garbage. And I really thought that this movie came out in like the early 2000s. So I went to Disney Plus. I was like, you know what I'm going to do this year? I'm going to extend my Halloween tradition and I'm going to watch Hocus Pocus 2. Come to find out, this shit came out in 2022. And I watched the video. I made notes about it. I was like, I'm going to make a video about this. And then I watched it and I was like, I don't really know if I need to do this. Until I saw this trailer. Hocus Pocus 2. Better than the first. As soon as I saw that, I was like, all right, I gotta make this video because clearly somebody in the media is making shit up. Today, we're gonna talk about Hocus Pocus 2 and why it is certainly not better than the first one. So before I even started watching the movie, I had a couple questions laid out in my head that I wanted to address as I went through the movie. The first and main question being, how and why does this movie exist? The Sanderson sisters have died. They have been poofed into dust. And I am genuinely curious how they're going to weasel their way out of this and bring them back to life. So that was my first question. So the movie starts with the Sanderson sisters when they were young in their little, in Salem. I was going to say in their little provincial town, but they are in Salem. And the first thing I noticed right out of the gate is the fact that they are using obviously modern cameras, but like make that shit look older. Maybe you can just slap a little grain on there in the editing process to make it look like it's whatever year it's supposed to be, the 1700s, 1800s. I have no idea. But we start with the Sanderson sisters when they were young. I got to admit, Winnie, the kid, pretty good. I mean, decently good. The other two, I'm not sure. I can't say that I enjoyed their acting, but I will say, shout out for being in a Disney movie. I also forgot to mention that if you're watching this video and you haven't seen Hocus Pocus 2, there will be spoilers. I am going to ruin the movie for you. So if you don't want to have the movie ruined and you want to watch that first, go ahead and do that now. So Winifred's pissed because she's supposed to be marrying the son of the Reverend or the mayor or whoever the guy is, Richard Trask. And she doesn't want to marry this man. She's in love with who we know from the first movie, Billy. So they decide to run off into the Forbidden Forest is what I'm going to call it. I know that's not the real name for it, but they run off into the Forbidden Forest and they meet for witches. So they run into the woods and she snatches up baby Sarah Jessica Parker and she's about to do the same shit that Winifred was doing in the first movie, give her some potions, steal her soul, you know, just girly things. So as the nice blonde witch lady is realizing that these kids are special, she does something really strange. I don't mean to be too controversial here, but I'm starting to think that Joe Biden might have given her a little bit of acting notes. So the nice witch lady ends up liking these kids, telling them that they're different from other kids, and she ends up giving them the infamous book that we all know from the first movie. And then the witch warns them there's this spell that they should never do, and then of course Winifred's like, why? And the only comeback that this woman has is because I told you so. Which does not work. I don't know what parents think, but like, that's not a valid reason. If you don't give me a logical and objective reason why I shouldn't do something, I'm probably gonna do it. So naturally they start using the spells and they end up lighting the Trask house on fire, which at this time is probably pretty dangerous because everything's made of wood and there is no real fire department. So they tried to murder the town basically. So that's our opening scene. We meet the sisters, they get the book. Hocus Pocus 2 flashes across the screen, and we've moved on to what is now presumed to be the actual movie, where we meet our protagonist, Becca, who's a nice young girl. It's her birthday. She's just trying to do some witchcraft, but naturally, of course, we can't have a little witchcraft, and we can't have a Disney movie without some girl drama. They're pissed because Cassie is going to be having a party with her boyfriend instead of going to the woods to do a witchy seance thing, which they've been doing every year and has yielded zero results. So they're leaving school, you know, everybody's hyped. It's Halloween. We're all going to have a good time. And they run into the mayor. We meet the mayor and it's weird. It's just weird. He's weird. So they leave the festival where the mayor is, and they go see their friend Gilbert, who now owns and operates the Sanderson sisters' old house, but it's a gift shop now. And this is a critique that is definitely coming from my movie, theater, all that shit background. Why would you change what the book looks like? That to me is something for the whole movie I couldn't stop thinking about. Like, do you guys not have the old prop? I know that you do. This is Disney. I know you have it. And also the eyeball in the book really looks a little too human for my own comfort. I think what made the first movie so successful was that it was all practical, and you could tell, and there was a little bit of a disconnect between fiction and reality. And I think that's what a lot of movies do wrong now with CGI and how good it's become and how realistic everything looks. It becomes very difficult for people to suspend their disbelief when shit looks too real in movies like this. So Gilbert, the shop owner guy, has got this whole spiel about the history of the town and the Sanderson sisters. And he's talking about how, a virgin's got to light the black flame candle. And my little guy, he says,
"What's a virgin?"
My man's, I like that they put this in. Gilbert's sweating. Gilbert's scared. He doesn't know how to answer this question. The mom's right next to the kid. And the best thing he can come up with is,
person who has never lit a candle.
Gilbert gives them this weird ass candle that kind of looks like shit. And he's like, take this out in the woods with you tonight. And I understand that these girls trust Gilbert, but like, look at this thing. The girls light the candle in the woods, and it turns out to be one of those sparkler candles that like shoots sparks coming out of the candle, and the girls freak out. They dump water on the candle, putting the candle out, but then the candle just relights itself. I've always wondered this in the first movie, like, why didn't anybody just blow out the candle? Dump some water on the candle, tip the candle over and put it in some sand, just put it out. And I like that they addressed that in this movie. But I don't necessarily love that they put the candle out and then the candle just relit itself. I do like to imagine Gilbert at home waiting to feel the feeling of the witches coming back. And when he finally does, he's like, these girls have no idea that I've just brought back a nightmare for my own enjoyment. Sick. So the sisters come back. They're like, oh my God, we need potions. We gotta eat some kids' souls so that way we can feel young and look young and live forever. So Becca and Izzy come up with a really great idea to bring them to where modern potions can be found.
Here we are.
Just powerful indeed. Look.
We have a plan. Walgreens. So it really blows my mind that even in 1993, when the first movie was made, nobody got a picture of these bitches. Nobody took a picture of these women to say, hey, these are the Sanderson sisters, and this is what they looked like. Let's come up to them in the supermarket, and they're like, oh my God, let's get a selfie, because they think their costumes are so good. It's 2022 now, and they filtered the photo. So we spend damn near 10 minutes in this Walgreens for the power to go out because of some witchy powers, and the Sanderson sisters decide, since Becca and Izzy just ran away, that they need to fly. They gotta fly out of here. Poor Mary. In movie one, they put her on a vacuum, and that shit's kind of funny. It makes sense. It's long. It's a stick. They give Mary Roomba shoes. If witches could just fly on anything, I feel like they could choose literally anything else. It's actually quite appalling just how important these Roombies become later in the movie. Somebody in the writer's room's like, I have a really good idea for what Mary could be flying out on in the second movie. You know how she was flying on a vacuum in the first, right? And everybody at Disney's like, yeah, okay, all right, we're following. We put her on 2 Roombas who will save the day later in the movie. And everybody at Disney in the writing room's like, yeah, absolutely do that. That's a good idea. So Becca and Izzy run back to the Sanderson sisters' old home where they find Gilbert, and they let him know, hey, the witches are back. We got to take the book because they're coming here to get it. And Gilbert, who now calls himself Gilbert the Great, decides that he's just going to unlock the book and it opens automatically. Like, does he not know that the sisters are going to come? Does he not know that this beam of light is going to come out of the book like that? Which I also question. And here's why. Because in the first movie, Max and Allison, they don't see the gold beam come out of the book. But for some reason, now everyone sees it. So Becca and Izzy end up questioning Gilbert as to why the fuck he would do this. Because these women are evil. And they eat the souls of children. And he's like, nah, man, you don't get it. they only were mean because they had to be, which is not the case. Winifred was low-key kind of a brat before the whole witchcraft thing. And they're just misunderstood. And I'm like, no, dog. That is not how evil spirits work. I also gotta know why Sarah Jessica Parker, has always been like the horniest bastard ever.
A boy.
So obviously Becca and Izzy are at the store when the Sanderson sisters arrive, and they decide to put them in the dungeon, which Gilbert just watches these adult women push these children literally down the stairs and does nothing. My guy Gilbert, the adult in this situation, would at least say something about it, but he's just kind of like, they're probably fine. So after just watching 2 children be assaulted by 3 adult women, Gilbert then goes into detail about how he's been trying to bring the Sanderson sisters back since he saw them that night. And it turns out that somehow Gilbert was in the graveyard when Max and Allison and Danny defeated the Sanderson sisters and was like watching from afar. I feel like this is a bit of a stretch, but a good way to intertwine him to a story he doesn't make any sense in right now. We're about halfway through this movie, and the only thing I can really think about is how they tried to give us a nostalgic movie for people who have been connected to this movie since they were kids, and they wanted to make something new for kids to connect to now. I just don't think that they really spoke to either of those audiences. Let me know what you think if you've seen the movie or what you think so far from what you've seen of this video, but we're going to keep going. We're going to keep talking about the movie. We're going to see how the rest of this plays out. Instead of trying to be young forever and steal kids' souls, they're going to make a potion that will make them all powerful. And by them, I mean secretly just her. I'm not sure the Sanderson sisters, Mary and Sarah, actually understand this at this point because, to be honest, they don't really understand anything ever. But that's the new goal. And we're back with another loophole from this movie. Gilbert goes to dig up Billy's body because they need the head of a lover for the potion or whatever. And he like barely gets a shovel into the ground before Billy like pops out and he's like, oh my God, why are you disturbing my sleep? And I think about this because at the end of the last movie, Thackeray Binks was removed from the body of a cat. His soul left the cat body.
The witches are dead. My soul's finally free.
And all of their spells that they had cast when they were alive had lifted. I'm confused if Billy stayed a zombie and literally anyone could have shoved like 2 inches of a shovel into the ground and he would be brought back to life, or if the sisters coming back also put the spell back on Billy. But if that's the case, would Thackeray's body go back into a cat? And I know what you're thinking. It's not supposed to be real. It's just a movie. And I get that. But like, if you're going to make a movie, even fictional movies, you have to be consistent with the rules of the world that this movie exists in. And so far, I'm just fucking lost. For the next like 30 minutes, basically nothing of value happens other than the dad has to get out of line for his prized candy apple so that way he can go to the house and crash his daughter's party. And the Sanderson sisters do have another musical number, which is exceptionally worse than the first. I feel really bad for Cassie's boyfriend the whole movie because he's basically just painted to be like literally the dumbest motherfucker I've ever met in my life. And he's experiencing extreme trauma through this entire thing. Like headless Billy's body comes up to him and he just like passes out in the street. So as the Sanderson sisters are doing the spell and making the potion so that they can become all powerful, Becca realizes that she too might be an avatar. They have Becca's hands turn blue to show that she's got magical powers, and I couldn't help but feel like she was going to turn into an avatar. And to be honest with you, I'd be much more interested in watching one of those blue avatar people fight off the Sanderson sisters than I'm interested in watching these 2 young girls do it. I also find that it's important to note that I understand that I am an adult person looking at this with an adult perspective. And that doesn't change my opinion on it at all. So Becca, having just discovered she's a witch literally within the last 40 seconds, has to then protect all of her friends from the Sanderson sisters using her witch powers. As we all know, nothing is more powerful than friendship. She can only keep her friends safe when her friends also put their hands up to block the witch's powers. But it just feels very much like a Fast and Furious moment, like family. That's my best Vin Diesel impression. I've not really seen the movies. I've only seen the memes about family. All right? Take it easy. In order to become the most powerful witch ever, Winifred has to lose her sisters. So her sisters die, which I'm just like, okay, just make another candle or whatever and bring them back. She loses her sisters and realizes that There's no point in being a powerful witch if you don't have your family. And to be honest with you, when I was watching this, I was like, it would low-key be funny as fuck if the book kind of was just like, and kill yourself too. And it did do that. And I was actually really happy. It was one of the moments of this movie that I was like, something that makes sense. So Becca, Cassie, and Izzy cast a spell so Winnie can dissipate into the ether with her sisters. And the way that it's animated, you really could just watch the end scene of Shrek 1 and you'd feel the same exact way.
First kiss, and then take love's true form, and then take love's true form, and take love's true form.
So our protagonists get rid of the Sanderson sisters yet again, and Gilbert offers them a nice discount for practically ruining their lives and ruining the world, and then the movie just ends. It's just over. So moral of the story and the moral of this movie is that the Sanderson sisters can probably come back again if somebody just makes another Black Flame candle, and I'd be curious to see if they make a Hocus Pocus 3. With all that being said, I know a lot of people put a lot of time into this movie, and I'm not discrediting their efforts or the amount of time it takes to make a movie. All I'm saying is that if you're going to put the amount of effort, money, and time into making a movie, at least make the movie make fucking sense. What were your guys' thoughts about this movie? Did you like it? Did it feel like the nostalgia hit that you were looking for? Let me know in the comments. If you thought my video was absolutely ass, let me know and I'll try to do better next time. Thanks for subscribing, and I'll see you on the next episode of JEBYxD.